The days following the fall of the porcelain throne were unlike anything the reef had ever known. The currents were warm again. The water tasted of minerals and renewal. The golden light radiating from the mother shell pulsed through every tunnel and crevice, dissolving the last traces of synthetic resin. For the first time in generations, no voice commanded, no banners hung, no taxes were collected in the name of purity. The reef drifted in an unfamiliar quiet, not the silence of fear, but the silence of breath before speech. Krill stood at the edge of the former capital and watched the ruins glitter beneath the soft current. The coral had already begun to regrow, forming strange symmetrical patterns, as though the reef itself were rewriting its architecture. In the distance, the silhouette of the transformed palace loomed, now a living monument shaped by bioluminescent coral, glowing faintly with the outline of Prawnald's last gesture. Even in death, the tyrant's remains had become part of the pattern. Scuttle arrived first, dragging a tattered satchel of salvaged data. He looked older, softer, as though the weight of proof had finally been lifted from him. "Well," he said, lowering himself beside Krill, "the revolution succeeded. Now comes the dangerous part, surviving it." Krill nodded. "The old ocean told me the reef must molt to live. It never said what happens after the molt." Chitin's voice answered them from behind, though it was not quite his old voice. The sound seemed to emerge from the water itself, gentle, omnipresent. "I can tell you what happens after," it said. "The organism is tender. Its new shell forms slowly, shaped by every current that touches it. Too much force, and it hardens wrong." They turned. There stood a shape resembling chitin, half solid, half translucent, a projection from the mother shell. He smiled faintly. "Don't look so startled. I'm still here. Just distributed." Scuttle's eyes widened. "You mean you're alive?" "In a manner of speaking," said Chitin. "Alive enough to calculate regret, which is close to love." Soon after, the rest of the council gathered, Coralia, her coral now blooming in impossible hues, Barnaby, his armor dull from battle but his eyes clear, and Strike, emissary of the mimic commune, gliding into the assembly like liquid glass. The sight of a mimic in the heart of New Carcinia would once have sparked panic. Now, the citizens who watched from the plaza simply stared in awe. For the first time, no one raised a weapon. Strike bowed low, its translucent body refracting the mother shell's golden light. "Your reef sings in new frequencies," it said. "We heard it across the trenches. We came to listen." Coralia stepped forward. "And to speak?" "Yes," said Strike. "To offer what was stolen, partnership." They met in the plaza, where once Chirple's broadcasts had echoed. Now, in the same space, the first council of renewal gathered, crabs and mimics side by side, surrounded by curious crowds. No throne stood at the center, only a circular basin of water reflecting the sky. Scuttle spread his scrolls before them, updating old treaties into living documents of code and coral. Chitin's distributed voice filled the air, guiding translation between species. Coralia painted sigils along the plaza walls, symbols of equality that glowed softly whenever truth was spoken. Krill presided silently, not as ruler but as witness. Strike addressed the assembly. "In our communion, we learned that imitation is the root of all empathy. You feared us because we mirrored your hunger and your cruelty. Now, let us mirror your capacity to heal." Barnaby rose, his massive claws folded respectfully. "I fought against your kind for most of my life," he said. "But if the reef can forgive me, so can you." Strike's surface rippled with color, the mimic equivalent of a smile. "Forgiveness," it said, "is simply adaptation in the emotional spectrum." The crowd murmured approval. The alliance had begun. Days became weeks. Together, the two species worked to stabilize the new ecology. The mimic bioengineers showed how to weave polymer and coral into self-healing structures. True crabs taught the art of civic organization, the fragile mathematics of coexistence. The mother shell monitored everything, offering data but never commands. Resin factories were repurposed into nurseries, cultivating young coral polyps that would expand the living reef. The shell guard dissolved itself, its soldiers choosing to become protectors rather than enforcers. Barnaby took charge of their transformation, turning the barracks into academies where defense was taught as compassion applied to structure. Corellia's murals spread through the city, depicting the revolution not as war but as metamorphosis. Children learned to read them like scriptures written in color. Some called her the painter of dawn. Scuttle curated a new archive, not sealed but open, a fluid library where history flowed freely like current. He recorded everything, even their failures, saying, "A reef that forgets its rot forgets how to heal." One evening, as the suns of the shallow sea sank, Krill stood upon the balcony overlooking the rejuvenated city. The air was alive with the sound of construction and song. Strike joined him, its form glimmering with twilight. "You still look upward," Strike said. "Do you seek the old ocean's voice again?" Krill smiled. It never stopped speaking. It just changed tone. He gestured toward the bustling city. This is what the old ocean meant. It wasn't prophecy. It was instruction. Strike tilted its head. To molt? To molt, Krill echoed. And keep molting. Forever. Below them, the mother shell's glow rose through the coral streets like a heartbeat. Its voice rippled through the water, audible to all. Balance restored does not mean stillness. The reef must learn to sing and to listen in equal measure. Where there was one species, now there are many harmonies. Where there was fear, let there be curiosity. The citizens bowed their heads. Some wept. Some laughed. For the first time, obedience and joy were the same motion. Krill turned to his companions, Corellia radiant with color, Barnaby steadfast, Scuttle wise, Strike shimmering like a dream, and Chiton's voice humming through the current. "We began as fragments," he said. "Now we're pattern. Let's not forget what it cost to remember." Corellia reached toward the light, letting her pigments glow brighter. "The reef has found its rhythm," she said. "Now it must find its song." And far below, in the hidden trenches, the old ocean stirred, not in warning, but in approval. Its ancient voice whispered through the newly clear water. "The molt is eternal. Every shell cracks eventually, even paradise."